So with the release of new files, Prince Andrew is once caught in all of them again. New footage, new images attached to these files have been released. Doesn't look good for him, and if it doesn't look good for him, doesn't look good for Sarah Ferguson, and doesn't look good for his daughters either. Hey guys, it's Marwan Ali. Hopefully you guys are all doing well today, daily and consistent. Do click that button and subscribe. We have to get into this new trove of files that have Prince Andrew's name written all over it. We can see here, and I'm going to have to literally blur out half of the picture so that you guys can't actually see the full extent, but there's a link in the bio for those of you that want to see Prince Andrew in a very pixelated picture, but he's not sitting alone. He's sitting with a woman on his lap, or a girl, we really can't tell, but what it looks like is that this particular person in this image, she looks very uncomfortable. You don't need to see her face, that's been redacted, but you can see the rest of the body here. The body language screams uncomfortability, and you can really see how demonic and awful Andrew is. In the following picture, you've got another woman who is standing behind him, or girl, we honestly don't know, but look at the smile on this man's face. Smug ego. This man believes that he can genuinely get away with everything, and that is the face that he is showing to us. Even if it's pixelated, you can still tell here, absolutely horrific, where these girls came from, and they were obviously trafficked into the UK. Clearly, UK border control don't know or don't give a damn. They probably knew, but didn't give a damn about what Andrew was doing, but they want to be lecturing us about, anti-immigration and, refugees and asylum seekers, despite the fact that the UK is involved in destroying so many places, but also because their own royal family, Mr. Prince Andrew, is literally bringing in so many people via the Lolita Express. These images are horrific because both of the women or girls, because it could be either, we simply don't know, just look so uncomfortable. So once again, Andrew is being exposed here, and there's more information about it. He allegedly also received a massage from a Brazilian model who was basically harmed by Epstein. A witness testimony has uncovered in the newly files a FBI tip. The woman showed FBI investigators about how she had to forcefully do his back, shoulders, waist, and hands. And in the FBI report, the woman explained that she went to Epstein's house in New York. And the details from the document appear to read, Prince Andrew was in the kitchen with another girl. Redacted recognizes Prince Andrew and was quite shocked. Redacted described the girl as being approximately 20-something and able to speak good English, but not an American. Epstein told his Prince Andrew that Redacted was good at massages. Therefore, she had to perform for and do this for Andrew. The interview appears to state that everyone was wearing their clothes during the incident with Andrew, and the former Duke has consistently denied all of these allegations, but yet these images basically, guys, have come in on what is going on with Andrew. Awful stuff, guys. From what we're seeing here, he's being exposed once again in FBI tips and brand new images, shock footage, and it just makes it more harmful for the royal family. And the question now here is Charles going to abdicate? Probably. His health is obviously, going down the drain, but the more Andrew gets exposed here, it's a big domino effect on everybody in the royal family. They want to be done with this. They want this to be wrapped up, but Andrew keeps exposing them despite the fact that the title is gone. It doesn't matter. He's been heavily associated with the royal family because he's part of it. So that means that all of this that he's doing and that he keeps denied, and then more and more keeps being exposed, more and more footage keeps getting released. It shows that the royal family are nothing but liars being exposed brutally, continuously, because you have the like of our king Charles helping to save Andrew and helping his financial settlement when this is what this man was doing. More and more footage is coming out every single 3 weeks of Andrew. How many girls are there, as far as I'm concerned? How many have been correlated with this man? How many have been brought into the UK illegally? These are horrific conversations, and the fact that this is being water dripped to us, the Epstein files, I think is good, so that we keep being reminded about it. Now, like I said, things are getting bad for the daughters, and that's basically been confirmed. Princess Eugenie, guys, has officially had to step down as a patron of an anti-slavery charity. Insane that she was even part of an anti-slavery charity when your father literally had slaves left, right, and center, as far as I'm concerned. But she was a patron for the world's oldest human rights organization, and the decision has been because of her father. After 7 years, our patronage has come to an end. We thank the princess very much. So this was the charity that put out a statement and gave it to the Observer. Eugenie's profile has been removed, which previously held her work. This is so sad, guys, because there's no suggestion of any wrongdoing from Eugenie herself specifically, but the charity have actually removed her. They've not given her a choice. They've just put out this statement. They gave it to the papers. They gave it to the Observer. And this is the world oldest organization. This is huge news in the UK that the daughters are feeling the effects of what is going on with Andrew. She's stepped down, but of course not willingly, but she's forcibly. How bad does that look on her when it comes to brands, when it comes to other charities that she works with, any other organizations, when it comes to events? Her going to an event the next day and everybody's talking about you, saying that you've had to basically been pushed off one of these organizations, a huge organization. How bad does that look for Princess Eugenie? Embarrassing. This is the end for these two sisters, because how can they even work as royals? It's tainted them so much that they actually have to be kicked out of the royal family themselves as well, because how do you repair your image when you're the one also being dragged out of these charities? Moreover, these charities could be removing these princesses because they are privy to information that we are not. Perhaps Eugenie was part of this stuff, because even some of her charities and organizations that she has and wants to be on board with, what are those organizations really about? What's going on behind closed doors? At this point, it makes you think. Really bad news for Eugenie. I did not see this coming. This sends shockwaves amongst the royal family. It's all in the papers today, and it was released earlier on this afternoon that she has had to step down. They just put up they didn't even put up a long statement. They just put up 4 sentences to say, we're not dealing with this. Do you understand? We don't want any of you near us.
You may notice that I've not subscribed, but I've liked, and you'll see that on many of them now, because I don't subscribe to any new ones at the moment due to the YouTube home screen, how it's presenting lives and stuff. So I just need to keep my subscriptions down. I need to unsubscribe to load more, and I can. I'm still subscribing to obviously the people around this thing, and any trolls that I see of worth doing, just to keep them knowing that they are being watched and that they should do the right thing and give over the information they know, speak to the right authorities, etc., etc. Interestingly, Kaylee, the actual reason I wanted to do this live, I told you about the social media trafficking. You actually shared it yesterday. I didn't notice. Where is it? The Imagination podcast with is it Emma Catherine? Emma Catherine, I think. Yeah, so I actually watched I jumped in a bit further in, and then I actually went back and watched the start as well, because I really wanted to know the context to her story. It's really profound. Like, it's just so relatable to so many people, I'm sure. And for men and boys, there's a bit where at a party, very similar to the story you describe to me, actually, but with multiple boys at I think they're like 15, 16, and she's a couple of years younger, and she sort of was like, didn't know whether to blame. You'll hear it from her mouth. She didn't know how to lay the blame, but also they were gloating about it, being bullied about it at school, like after. And you hear that. I mean, it's just terrific what people go through gossip and lies and malicious just group nothing short of bullying. It's more than bullying, sorry. Bullying is the degree. It's just degrading abuse. It's abuse. So we'll watch this one first. And I was just going to show some clips of this one actually in the context of the Sarah Ferguson bit. This is pretty crazy.
Emails that say, "I want to marry you, Epstein."
And Sabine sent me this one just for reference. Look at that graphics. It's got it on the image shift. Yeah.
I'll give you my daughters. This woman there was nothing she wasn't prepared to sacrifice. Epstein.
Yeah, that's
I'll
Sarah
give you my
Ferguson.
daughters. It's the emails that say, I want to marry you, Epstein. I'll give you my daughters. This woman there was nothing she wasn't prepared to sacrifice. The emails that have come out in the latest release show her as calculating, cold, grasping, greedy. She has brought so much shame on the royal family. For too long, that family have brought shame on this country.
Do you believe that Andrew was abusing minors?
Well, I believe that Andrew and Virginia Roberts,
You believe there was MI6 involved?
the very chief of it, went to his house for dinner. Why was Prince Andrew having his bodyguards be security at parties at Epstein's home? It went from 4 police forces to 9 police forces, 60 flights with people who didn't even have their name in the flight logs. They were allowed into places where they shouldn't have been allowed to go because Prince Andrew demanded it. These poor victims have had to wait so long for justice. There will be a national uproar against the monarchy.
Can you do me a favor? If you get value from these conversations, hit subscribe.
Matthew Steeples, welcome to the show.
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. And here we are. It's fantastic.
Now, I've
Thank
known you for a long while through the internet.
through the internet and Sean Atwood particularly.
Yes, and you do a lot of good reporting, so does Sean. And we're going to talk about Andrew and Epstein and all of those things.
That's funny. I actually thought I unsubscribed earlier. Actually, I might have been on a different one of his channels. I watched one with Robbie Williams because Robbie Williams has got some interesting things. It seems to be a bit of an outcast to the characters of. I don't want to trigger you with Robbie Williams with your neighbour Kaylee. Sorry, but he seems to have not got swept into the corruption. Seemingly, it seems to be quite naive to it potentially, but he also may be a great deceiver. As this character as well. I mean, I spoke to this fella about Hampstead in this chat, and he knows all about it. You know, he's used to present with Sean before Ron, and you know they both said, "Oh, you get to." Well, Ron said in Sean's presence, "You get your oh, sorry, we can't talk about that. You get too close to the fire bites back." And this fella, he's like, you could tell he's nervous, but he wants the limelight. I mean, he's like he wants the fame, he wants the numbers, he wants the money, but he doesn't want to. I mean, he's sure he wants to, but he doesn't feel able to breach certain things. Did you see the Guardian article I sent you, Kaylee? So I sent. I'll share it on screen actually now. I won't actually play this interview. I think you got it all from. You got the idea of what I was getting at just from the intro there. Where are we? So ChatGPT driving rising reports of satanic organised and ritual abuse, UK experts say. Exclusive witchcraft, spiritual possession and spiritual abuse, offending typified by sexual abuse, violence and neglect. Excuse me. Perpetrators include abusive families and networks, human traffickers, online gangs and paedophile rings. ChatGPT is driving a rise in reports of organised and ritual abuse, UK experts have said, as survivors of satanic sexual abuse, violence, use the AI tool for therapy. Police say organised and ritual abuse and witchcraft, spirit possession and spiritual abuse. Sorry, I just need to cough again. WSPRA, it's got police terminology, witchcraft, spiritual possession and spiritual abuse against children is underreported in the UK. There is no modern day charge that covers it specifically, but such offending is typified by sexual abuse, violence and neglect involving ritualistic elements, sometimes inspired by Satanism, fascism and esoteric religious beliefs to control victims. Perpetrators include abusive families and networks, human traffickers, online gangs and paedophile rings. There have been 14 UK criminal cases since 1982 in which ritualistic practices in sexual abuse were acknowledged. However, 2025 research by clinical psychologist Dr. Ellie Hansen found convictions reflected the tip of the iceberg. Experts are now rolling out training for police forces in a drive spearheaded by the National Police Chiefs Council, excuse me, which has set up a specialist working group. Gabrielle Shaw, the chief executive of the National Association for People Abused in Childhood, NAPAC, said there have been a sustained rise in reports to them in ritual abuse over the last 18 months, with an increasing number of people saying that they had been led to report it by AI. Sorry, losing focus a minute. Shaw said, over the last 6 months to a year, we're getting people contacting the NAPAC support line saying, I was referred to you by ChatGPT. People are using AI ChatGPT as a form of therapy and exploration. There are mixed feelings about that, but if it's a route into support, that has to be a good thing. We would normally see spikes in calls around days that have significant supernatural or religious overtones, but this is not a spike. It's a sustained rise. There's increasing knowledge of the crime and of where you can get support. Satanism does come up a fair bit. NPCC, National Police Crime Commission, I think said, NAPAC, National Association for People Abused in Childhood, and the Hydrant Policing Programme, which supports forces nationwide with child protection, commissioned a review of Hansen last year and launched that was the Witchcraft Spiritual Practices Ritual Abuse briefing for professionals this month. Last year, members of a paedophile ring in Scotland who posed as witches and wizards were jailed for sexual offences. Shaw said of 36,700 calls over 9 years of NAPAC, 1,310 mentioned organised ritual abuse. She said offending could be intergenerational in nature. And while perpetrators were predominantly male, survivors named grandmothers and aunts as perpetrators. Richard Fuchs, Hydrant Programs Director, said the fact ritual elements sounded fantastical, had contributed to the justice gap. He added, we need to improve right the way across the system in dealing with it. It is out there, it does exist, and it's not actually being reported to police. We've known this for many, many years. Hansen said victims were growing up in regimes of cruelty, but truth was getting lost between a discourse of disbelief on one hand and conspiracy fictions on the other. She added, we're not seeing this abuse happening in particular cultures rather than others. This is something we're seeing happening within white British, often privileged families. It's not conforming to any stereotypes about where it might be. Not seeing this happen. So it's not in particular cultures rather than others, but then they say that it is more in the white British, often privileged families. So that would suggest that it is in that culture. I don't know if maybe they're trying to. I think that's a little bit of a trying to make it not trying to take the emphasis off the idea that it's like an immigration problem of voodoo and witchcraft, because they're the stories that have been brought to light previously, aren't they? So I think they're just appealing to the actual natives of the country, saying, "Yeah, don't be fooled. It is white people from British families." Yeah, and yeah, I don't think it's underprivileged. Yeah, interesting wording, but powerful, especially after everything the Guardian have done. So God bless you, Guardian. I'm praying for you. Whew. Oh, I actually recorded the article, but I didn't get his name. I need to add that to the article now and the actual website address. But I screenshotted it. I copy and pasted the whole article. So next, we'll just catch up on any comments. We've got hi Pip, onions Pip. Fruitcakes are using ChatGPT to make up bullshit. Yeah, thank you, Lucifer. Definitely not Satanism. Everybody, look the other way. Definitely not Satan. Who would even use the word Satanism? I mean, it's just like a word that's to do with, like, you know, what would it even mean? What I'm trying to think, what bit these Mandy.com was it to do this one? Everything's Mandy.com. Well, around here, they've got so much to answer for. Oh my lord. It's going to be quite profound. Everybody just get away from it. Like, if you've grown up in the Hampstead school or the other school, the Hampstead Parochio, or is it John Wood, the one with the church on the logo, the other one, in one of these schools where you've been bred into this situation, or if your family were involved in some sort of, you know, obscure abusive practices and beliefs and stuff, then break away. You know, you won't be, but you can't be forgiven. Oh yeah, thank you, yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, of course. He worked at the BBC for 2 years as well. I think he kind of blamed cultural diversity and different peoples of different racial origin coming in why he didn't get his contract extended, and so he's a little bit he's a bit bitter about that. He kind of went anti-woke for, you know, really pro J.K. Rowling, and who's the other one who spoke out? Well, even Jordan Peterson, as much as he does a silly impression of him. But he did make a good point how, because Jordan Peterson's gone really religious Christian now, and actually had various mental breakdowns because he got so attacked. But then the people that were looking to Jordan Peterson for some answers, you know, about manhood and stopping being incels and they, you know, just hating on women and stuff for the fact that they had been bred to be, you know, insecure, overweight gamers and stuff like that, unhealthy people, whatever. Although he did do this carnivore diet stuff, unfortunately, but hopefully he's seen through that now. His daughter did as well. But he then the Andrew Tate stuff, people latched onto the Andrew Tate stuff, and wow, the teachings in that ridiculous abuse college is just obscene. Hopefully we'll get some sort of he will be brought to, you know, taken out of it. You know, these people just the amount of money they've got, the amount of people suffering and living off of what, $1 a day, they say, don't they? Something like that. Yeah. Who would even? That's ironic. One of the fruitcakes that's forever making up, questioning who would even use the term. Yeah, it's just so mad. Who would even use what? I mean, Satanism. What does it even mean? It's just some letters put together, isn't it? That got used in the Bible to do with some silly stuff to do with a baddie, and, you know, Lucifer, the one with the horns, and, you know, it means nothing. Surely our friend doesn't want to be known as Adam anymore. The first man, eh? First man. Anyways, actually, let's just get on with this thing this one? Oh, let's play the one you were going to play.
Files have taught us anything, it's that if the Epstein files have taught us anything, it's that a shadow elite isn't just obsessed, they're addicted to the unthinkable, the meat of children. They hoard this depravity in their private circles. But that's no longer enough. They're engineering something far darker, a silent, systematic campaign to make the rest of us consume our own kind, without suspicion, without consent, without ever tasting the truth. And now, with the latest flood of documents pried open, buried emails surface from the abyss. Code words shattered, money trails exposed like veins, whistleblowers finally daring to speak, all threads pulling towards one grotesque revelation. The powerful aren't just abusing, they're grinding the evidence into the very things we eat. They call it yum yum dinners, and they're determined to feed humanity its own horror, bite by hidden bite. Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join the People's Voice Locals community to join our incredible community, support the channel, and gain access to exclusive and uncensored content. Evil doesn't hide in the dark forever. It leaves trails, digital footprints, damning words that scream from the page. Picture this, emails from 2010, unearthed from the depths of those infamous files. Not just any emails, a twisted game laid bare between Jeffrey Epstein and his circle of degenerates. We already knew about their fixation on jerky, code word for the unthinkable, child meat. Thousands of references litter the documents, thousands. In contexts that defies innocence. Girls instructed to walk the jerky straight to Jeffrey's door, cryogenically frozen jerky preserved like trophies from hell. Shipments of jerky dispatched to Israel for DNA testing. Why? What kind of monster tests meat for DNA? But hold on, because investigators just cracked another layer. A fresh code word, woven through the files like poison in a vein. Yum Yum Parties. Take this 2010 email chain, innocently titled Last Night. Epstein and Hollywood insider Peggy Siegel, batting messages back and forth. She tells him it was great to see him, and that he looked sensational for a free Jew. That's right. She was messaging him just after his prison sentence, advising him how to reintegrate into society as a convicted paedophile. But here is where the emails get even darker. Epstein and Siegel were plotting their next Yum Yum gathering, and they were obsessed, absolutely fixated, on inviting non-Jews. It will be easier to get smart goyim on those nights because no one plans major social events, Siegel wrote to Epstein. Why? Why the determination to feed non-Jews? Because the menu at Yum Yum Parties was darker than you can stomach. They served up that jerky to the unwitting, to outsiders, slipping human remains into the feast without knowledge and without consent. Yes, really, this isn't speculation. When you understand the code words, it's there in black and white.
Going into specifically just based on what this is, I don't know.
It's a code
The
word.
context is
It has to be a
it's
code word. Nobody
It's a
talks
code
about
word
jerky
and
like
it's
this.
Weird. Yeah, it's a code word and it's weird, but either which way,
We have beef jerky in the studio, okay? So, like, you know, Klein and I know, I've never spoken to my team or anything. There's no correspondence of me talking about jerky this obsessively. There's hundreds of emails about jerky.
It's a
very
code
specific-
word, and some of those emails were sent by women.
A ritual of deception hiding in plain sight among the elites, feeding humanity their horrors, one dinner party at a time. For decades, the elite have made it clear. They see us as cattle, not souls. And now, we're beginning to understand what that truly means. One dinner.
Oh dear. But you know, we all had suspicions, didn't we? Let's take this on face value for now because of this does seem to be a quite truthful presentation of generally just in this this channel's been pretty reliable. It's these Epstein files are quite self-explanatory in their own way, or quite upfront in your face, aren't they? Amazing.
Dinner party at a time. For decades, the elite have made it clear. They see us as cattle, not souls. And now we're beginning to understand what that truly means. Because it wasn't just on Epstein's dinner tables where the elite attempted to force feed human meat to unsuspecting people. There's a push to turn all of us into involuntary cannibals. They're feeding us human remains without consent.
In the Epstein files, there was some things said about McDonald's, bro. And it's really, really disturbing. Jeffrey Epstein was writing an email explaining how a certain group of people, they tricked the into eating human flesh. McDonald's has ties to hospital. You know that, right? Yeah. Ronald McDonald Hospital. Yeah. Where's the farms? That's a good question. They did the math. There's like the amount of burgers that McDonald's produces, there's not enough cow. So where does it come from? The meat that's in. No. Yeah. No. Yeah, so, I just got it. If they have like connects to a hospital. But obviously this is just all alleged. Wait. But it's in the Epstein files. It's in the Epstein files.
It isn't just dangerous and grotesque. It's calculated descent into barbarism. One meal at a time. Now they've taken the next step. And they're pumping human remains and feces into our food and water supplies.
Selling bodies and body parts, a trial set to begin in just months. And tonight, new grisly details of what the FBI says really happened.
Court documents, the Biological Resource Center was essentially running a chop shop for human body parts, mixing, matching, and selling them in ways we never heard of until tonight.
One FBI agent revealing what it was really like inside the Phoenix body donation facility, from buckets of heads, arms, and legs to coolers filled with severed when the FBI raided the building. He even spotted a smaller head sewn onto a larger torso in a, quote, Frankenstein manner. The limbs, according to that agent, with no apparent identification.
It gets worse. This was not a one-off. It's part of a much wider operation. Next phase of the elite's plan to denigrate the human race. It gets even worse when you understand the FBI uncovered a shocking scandal involving human remains allegedly found at a Detroit business linked to McDonald's. It gets even worse still when you understand the human remains were the remains of young children. We have the details the mainstream media have been ordered to cover up, coming up next. I was doing some research online the other day and stumbled on a video from Chuck Norris. Yeah, the Chuck Norris. The guy is 85, but says he feels 50 and still kicking ass. I was skeptical at first, but once I watched the video, I realized the secrets he's spilling are ridiculously simple and completely hidden from the public. It shocked me. He's dodging 3 toxic foods the system shoves down our throats. Stuff that wrecks our bodies as we age. Big Pharma really doesn't want you to hear about this. I tried it myself, and I'm feeling sharp already. Chuck Norris is giving the information away for free in a no bullshit video. Visit chuckdefense.com/TPV, links below. That's chuckdefense.com/TPV. Watch it now, or stay suckered by their lies. McDonald's, the world's largest fast food empire, feeding billions under the grin of a clown mascot. But the joke? It's been on us from the start. Look at Ronald McDonald. Those exaggerated red lips and nose. Not just makeup. They scream blood, symbolizing the devouring of human flesh. He's the most famous member of the Red Shoe Club, a nod to elite rituals. Just like Pennywise from It, or the Joker from Batman. Clowns that embody cannibalism, hiding the darkest human sacrifices in plain sight. This ties into the revelation of the method. The powerful must reveal their horrors openly. When we see it in ads, movie symbols, and do nothing, that's our silent consent. They've got permission to keep going. The Big Mac isn't just a burger, it's a message. And we've been swallowing it whole.
I'm just gonna show you a compilation of people finding weird things in their food, right? Somebody found like a tooth.
Went to McDonald's.
Look.
I got 2 teeth on the bag.
There's a laughing,
bro.
My McDonald's burger, it looks like it's a tooth.
Or part of a tooth.
This sandwich tastes so young and impudent.
It's no wonder the CEO keeps making excuses to avoid swallowing a single mouthful of his own product.
I'm going to do a tasting right now, but I'm going to eat this for my lunch, just so you know. So first of all, let's try to get this thing. I don't even know how to attack it. Got so much to it. Oh, there's also some crispy onions on here as well. I see those kind of coming out. All right, the moment of truth. That is so good. That's a big bite for a big arch.
Perhaps he was thinking about the time the FBI found human remains at a Detroit business linked to a McDonald's supply chain.
And Jim, is this part of that investigation? Is that winding down at all yet?
It is indeed, Jeff. Take a live look behind me. This is what's left of the FBI evidence recovery team inside this car. And take a look at this vehicle. We believe this is the owner of the business just returning to take back possession of his business. More on that in a second. But take a look. Another busy day out here on Detroit's east side, just down the road from City Airport. Sources say they have removed several boxes of what is believed to be human remains. Sources say many, many people. This was a big operation. And get this, inside this business, a saw used to cut up bodies, it is believed, all taken away as evidence to the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office, where it will be tested.
Are we just at the tip of the iceberg on this investigation, you think?
Could very well, and we're not clear on how long it's going to take to do the testing of what is believed human remains. But get this, you had a death in your family, you thought there was a burial or a cremation, and then you find out the body ended up here. Shocking, to say the least.
Certainly so. A lot of questions remain tonight, Jim. Thank you.
Where did the bodies come from? 20 years ago, Rabbi Finkelstein of New York admitted distributing children's bodies to McDonald's.
And, I know you've known because I've heard it on your show before. I mean, we steal 100 to 300,000 children a year just here in this country. And we drain the blood and we mix it with the Passover bread. And then we throw the bodies into the slaughterhouses that we own. And we grind up all the bodies in the sausage and the hamburger. McDonald's is one of our favorite outlets. And the people, they eat it for breakfast. They eat their children for lunch. And, us Jews, we gotta do what we do. The most important thing to remember between you, Pastor Wickstrom, and me, Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein of New York, that we both have two fathers, and so that's why we look at the world in two different ways.
And we know that there's a massive collision that's going to take place between two forces, don't we?
Well, that's what your book says. Our book says that we're going to take over the world.
Revelation of the method isn't a theory anymore. It's their final arrogance. They show us the horror in plain sight because they believe we're too weak, too distracted, too consenting to stop them. But the clock is ticking. The exposures are accelerating. The fall of the cabal has begun. And when the last curtain drops, when the full scope is to stop them. But the clock is ticking. The exposures are accelerating. The fall of the cabal has begun. And when the last curtain drops, when the full scope of what they've fed us, what they've done to our children, and what they're planning for our future is laid bare, there'll be no more implied consent, only reckoning. Until then, if you're researching dangerous topics, you've got to protect yourself. VPNs were supposed to be our shield, but the world's leading control protocol created and compromised your subscription right now. VP.net. Action is shielded by check subscription operations.
Space. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Imagine in Dysfunctional Environments. These early experiences, unpredictable dynamics, emotional turbulence, and a quest for stability laid an invisible foundation that groomers would later exploit. Yet even amidst the turmoil, Rachel harbored expansive dreams, envisioning a future as bright as the cosmos, with aspirations that reflected her innate potential for unyielding spirit. The pivotal chapter of Rachel's life unfolded during her teenage years, coinciding with the dawn of social media's widespread influence. Eager to be a part of this new dynamic of socialization, she created an account on MySpace, one of the era's pioneering platforms. Unaware of the lurking perils in this new digital landscape, Rachel connected with a seemingly supportive woman who offered mentorship and investment in her ambitions. In retrospect, this quote-unquote friend was a calculated recruiter for an online human trafficking network, preying on vulnerable young girls by dangling the allure of their dreams as bait. What began as innocent online interactions spiraled into a web of manipulation, blackmail, and coercion, trapping Rachel in a cycle of trafficking that exploited her insecurities and isolated her from escape. This grim reality underscores a chilling statistic. Predators increasingly use social media to groom victims, with reports of online enticement rising over 300% in recent years. Rachel's testimony is a stark, unflinching recount of horror, revealing the insidious duality of social media. On one hand, it's a vibrant escape, a tool for forging connections across distances, preserving memories, reuniting with loved ones, and disseminating ideas that inspire change. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and X enable creativity and community in ways unimaginable just a generation ago. Yet beneath this facade, a darker underbelly thrives. Predators, including pedophiles, traffickers, and abusers, operate from the anonymity of their screens, no longer needing physical proximity to hunt. Rachel's experience highlights how these threats evolve. Traffickers now employ sophisticated tactics like deepfake technology, encrypted chats, and algorithmic targeting to ensnare victims, often starting with flattery or promises that mask their intent. But from the ashes of her trauma, Rachel has risen as an indomitable warrior, transforming her pain into profound purpose. Embracing the irony of her testimony's origins, she returned to social media not as a victim, but as a vigilant advocate and educator. As a survivor, influencer, woman, and mother, she offers a multifaceted lens on these platforms' risks and rewards. On her Instagram account, where she has garnered a ton of amazing attention and loyal followers, she whistleblows on grooming tactics, shares her personal testimony to bring awareness, and equips parents with practical tools to safeguard their children. Inspirational in her authenticity, Rachel models a bold redefinition of influence, prioritizing impact over popularity. She humanizes the statistics, reminding us that behind every trafficking case is a person with dreams derailed but not destroyed. Her testimony is far more than a cautionary tale. It's a powerful testament to the unbreakable human spirit. What was meant to destroy her has instead forged her into a force for change, proving that even the deepest darkness can give birth to extraordinary light. She stands as living proof that redemption is possible, that one voice raised in courage can ignite thousands, and that every survivor who chooses to speak out becomes a part of a rising tide that will one day turn back the waves of exploitation. In Rachel, we see not just survival, but triumphant rebirth, a reminder that no matter how broken the beginning, the ending can be one of profound victory, purpose, and unyielding hope for a safer, more connected world. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, walking miracle, fierce mama bear, social media victim turned warrioress, anti-human trafficking advocate and educator, content creator, and a woman on a mission to expose and end online exploitation, the one, the only, Rachel. Rachel, it is an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. Even with the circumstances they are.
I know these conversations are really hard, but I'm sure even just through what you've done on social media, you realize how needed these conversations are and how less alone it makes people feel. And it gives other people a voice and the courage to do the same thing you are, which is speaking out and bringing awareness. So I'm really grateful to have you on today. And I'm really grateful too that I found you on social media. I had a few people send me your profile online, and I got a couple tags in the comments of your videos that were going viral, which was really amazing to see. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, online, social media, human sex trafficking. This is a topic not talked about enough from a survivor perspective, as well as a parental perspective of the online dangers being shared. And I just really loved your message and was really excited that you agreed to come on today, because I think this conversation is just not had enough. And I think that's why so many people are gravitating towards your profile, because we've been sort of groomed to think that social media is just all fun and games, which it can be. But beneath all that lies this hidden network of darkness that you know all too well, and that we have a lot to learn from you about. So I thought maybe we'd start. I outlined in the intro just a brief little excerpt about the environment that you grew up in, but I thought maybe you could just expand on that and share maybe a few things that created vulnerabilities in you that later on your exploiters saw and used against you.
Yeah, so I think honestly, I think one of the biggest things with my upbringing is my dad had a lot of his own struggles that he never really acknowledged before becoming a parent or even while a parent. And he, he was never abusive in any, sense of the way, like he never hit me, he never did anything like that. But he never gave me a voice. And you don't realize how important that is to give your daughter and to give your children until they need to use it. And I think, especially like in the 90s, early 2000s, all of us growing up, we were taught much differently than the new generation is parenting. And one of the things was I had my first, I'm just going to jump into it. I had my first episode of being molested by a family friend when I was 4 and 5 years old. And there was one occasion that my dad walked into it. And my dad at this point had an opportunity to do something. And instead, I was the one that got in trouble. And I was told not to say anything, not to talk about it, never to bring it up. And it was just swept under the rug. And that was that. I still to this day don't think I've ever told my mom that story. And that was one of the first times as a little girl where I learned, like, okay, you can't say anything. And that only escalated as I got older. And I was, at a friend's sleepover when I was 8 years old, and her older brother, we were sleeping on bunk beds, and her older brother was probably 14, 15. And he climbed in the top bunk with me and started to touch me. And the only thing I knew to do at the time was I literally completely rolled off the top bunk, just straight to the floor, because I didn't know what else to do. And, it was nighttime. Everyone was sleeping. That was really all I felt I could do in the moment. Never told anyone.
I might have got the ages mixed up regarding the this lad that tried abusing her, this one, and then maybe it was a bit older at the high school when she was at a party. She mentions so this one she didn't tell anybody until later. It's her ex, the bit where she talks about how she actually disclosed this bit is so brilliant. And yeah, so basically she goes on this positive experience of a wilderness, 40 days in the wilderness, learning to make your own fire and things like that, in the mountains of somewhere, Colorado or wherever they are, and it might be Wisconsin from memory. And and then the other one, yeah, she describes that she laid blame on herself because she had a short skirt on at this party and stuff. But it's just, the person explains to her that no, you should not have. No, maybe she didn't tell anybody about this one at all. I assume she might explain now.
Anyone, never said anything, because again, after the first time it happened and my dad knew about it, he was like, we don't say anything. So I was like, okay, I don't say anything. And then when I was 13, before I was 13, so we moved, my dad, he grew up in the foster care system, very financially not well. And he hit it really big when I was in like 5th, 6th grade. He figured out how to make money, and he made a lot of it very quickly. And it completely consumed him. Once we got to that high society level, he was so obsessed with it that he cared more about how our family was seen versus what was actually happening in our house. And that's where things really started taking a turn. And we were taught, very like, you do what you're told. You do what you're told, you do what you're told, you do what you're told. We would go, my dad would specifically take me to, events and stuff with him. And these older gentlemen that he worked with or did jobs with or, whichever. I was like 13, 14 years old at this point, and they would call me jailbreak, or they would be like, I can't wait till you're 18. And my dad would just sit there and not say anything. And he allowed it to happen. And I just one thing after another just kept being sexualized since a little girl. And it just never stopped once it started. And I ended up losing my virginity by being raped by two guys I went to school with. And it would have been more, but when those two guys were doing what they were doing, a third boy walked up to the door and he was like, I'm next. And I looked at him and I was like, please no. I'm like, I don't. I'm like, please no. And he was the first one that listened. And that is the only reason it did not escalate into more. And I was 13. These boys were 14, 15. They weren't much older than me. And I think there's a common misconception around children and them being molested or raped or anything that they have. Everyone assumes it's adults. And there are so many kid-on-kid scenarios, most likely due to the fact that that child is probably being molested by someone else. There's that old saying, hurt people, hurt people. But again, after this happened, I didn't feel like I had a voice. And so I didn't say anything to anyone, but the boys did. And I very quickly developed a reputation around the school. And this is when social media was just like, Facebook had just came out at this point now. MySpace was like starting to become a thing. And so I would go online and, the next 4 years of high school were really rough. I was suicidal at one point, tried to commit suicide. That is when my parents sent me away, which I'm sure you've seen on Netflix now. Actually, there's a bunch of documentaries that have come out about the wilderness camps and the therapeutic boarding schools that a bunch of kids got sent to. So I went to the wilderness camp I went to was called Seuss. And it was in Idaho. They have them all over the country. The one I went to was in Idaho. And I will say, this wilderness program that I went to, I never experienced anything abusive. It was very gnarly, very, very gnarly. And to this day, I can still make a fire with sticks. And I am like, it's like my cool mom trick I have with my boys. I'm like, you guys, mom has a lot of survival skills you don't know about. So it's one of those, it's like one of the things where I'm like, you know what, that 40 days, I was in Idaho, in the hills of Idaho for 40 days with nothing except one pair of clothes, one pair of like long underwear. And then we had like a backpack with all of our gear in it and a tarp. And we would hike anywhere from 5 to 7 miles a day around the hills of Idaho. And we literally were thrown into survival mode, like literal survival mode. And we had 2 guides and they were like, figure it out. And they would teach us, obviously the guides knew what they were doing, and they would teach us all these things. And the first like 2 weeks I was into it, I really struggled, but then I fully embraced it. And I was all in. I became full-on wilderness woman out there. And when it was time to leave, I almost didn't want to leave. I was like, I kind of like this better. Like, people are nice to me out here versus back home. And when I was at Seuss, it was the first time I even acknowledged that I had been molested or raped. Because up until this moment, I put all the accountability on myself. I was like, well, I went to the house, you know, I was wearing a skirt, you know, I put all the blame on me. And I was talking to a therapist because they did do a lot. They would send a therapist out like once a week to check on all the kids. And he asked me, he's like, you know, so are you sexually active? And I was like, well, kind of. And he asked me about how I lost my virginity. And I went through the story with him. And he looked at me and he was like, you were raped. And I was like, no. I was like, I didn't fight. I didn't punch him. I was like, I kind of just froze. I'm like, but I didn't do more. And the therapist was like, did you tell them no? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay. And he had to like really break it down for me. And when I left the wilderness camp, I was sent to an all-girl boarding school, which was called Spring Ridge Academy, which if you do a little Google search, they have been in a few lawsuits for the abuse that happens there. That was 3 months of absolute hell. I literally begged my parents to come home every single phone call we had. And the boarding school would be like, no, everyone does this. Everyone does this. There were all kinds of crazy rules. But at the end of the day, the one thing they drilled in us is you have to submit. And at this boarding school, you had to submit to survive. Like if you did not submit, like you didn't want to know what was going to happen to you if you didn't submit to the rules that they were forcing. Like you couldn't go to the bathroom without permission. You couldn't talk to the girl next to you without permission. You couldn't leave your room without permission. You couldn't shave your legs. You couldn't, like, it was incredibly strict. When you show up, they make you get completely naked. They do like a full cavity search of your entire body. Like and I'm 14 years old. Like it was a really interesting place. But I look back at my history and I'm like, no wonder I was groomed on MySpace. Like I wanted to feel accepted and loved by just anyone at this point. And so my parents came out about 3 months into the boarding school for like a family night. And my mom immediately was like, something is very off here. And she came and got me a week later and pulled me out. And she was like, yeah, no, because it's a 2 to 3 year program usually. And when my mom did the parent night, she was like, this therapy we're doing is really odd. Like they put us down in a basement and they would do these super weird like therapy. I don't know what I'm looking for. Like therapy tactics, I guess, to like get stuff out. And it was just very odd, very cultish, very, very interesting. Again, if you Google Spring Ridge Academy in Spring Valley, Arizona, there is all kinds of fun stuff on them if you ever want to go do a dive. They recently, I think it was like 2 years ago, they paid out a $2.5 million lawsuit over abuse that happened there. So when I get home, one of the things that these places make you do is like, if you're overweight, they restrict food. And if you're underweight, they force you to overeat to gain weight. And when I went there, I was underweight. So they did a lot of force feeding. And when I came home, I had a little more weight on me than I normally did. And then that started a lot of talk around the town of how like I was chubby and I wasn't hot anymore. And there was all this other sort of rumors going on top of being, you know, a slut, a whore. I had messages on Facebook every single day from girls who were like, kill yourself. And now I had people who were overanalyzing my body down to a T because I had put on weight. So I developed a really bad eating disorder and I became bulimic And that lasted for about, so it started when I was 15, and I finally really got over it when I was like 25. It took a long, it became something I did out of stress. And it became almost like a coping, like if I was having a super stressful day, I would make myself throw up, and that was how I like got my stress out. And so again, fast forward a few years, a lot more happened. I'm like, I don't know how many, like, I don't have any details I'm supposed to get into right now. But I think another important thing to bring up is another time I really lost my voice, and I'm not super huge in faith. I'm working on it. It's something I've been trying to get more into. But when I was 17, I ended up getting pregnant. And oh boy, like my dad was not about to have a teenage daughter in high school having a baby, because that would destroy the family's reputation. Is literally his exact words was, it's going to ruin my business and it's going to ruin the family. My mom wanted me to keep the baby. She was like, you can keep it and give it up to adoption. She had a friend who had been trying for a baby for a long time. She's like, this could be a gift for them. She was trying every other avenue. And my dad ultimately was like, nope, you're going to Planned Parenthood and you're getting rid of it. And I didn't want to get rid of it. I didn't want to put the baby up for adoption. I didn't want to do either. And I was forced to. I didn't have a choice. I was 17 years old. Like, I didn't know, like, what was I going to do? Like, I was very financially dependent on my family. And, outside of having like a little job at Hollister on the weekends, where I worked like 4 hours a week, or what, like, I was taught, like, you do what you're told. And so I had to go through that, which absolutely killed my mom, because she, as much as I didn't have a voice, my mom didn't have a voice. And we knew my parents weren't happy. We didn't know what to extent they weren't happy. And then after that, my senior year of high school, my parents put me into I was a debutante. So supposedly it's like a charity, right, that they say. And it's 12 girls that are picked in the community. And essentially they put you in a wedding dress, you have a big ball, and you are presented to society to marry because you're of age. And so I had that, which looking back, I'm like, that's a really weird thing to do. At the time, we were just like excited to dress up. But, when you look back at it, you're like, why do you have your 18-year-old daughter in a wedding dress at a ball in front of a bunch of very wealthy men? Like, it's weird. But I think, this quick tidbit of my upbringing kind of gives a good idea of how I got to where I got to. So I'm on MySpace. I got to backtrack a little bit. So I'm on MySpace. So the debutante ball, I was 17 because I graduated in June of 2008 and I turned 18 May 10th. So on May 10th. So I turned 18. So I was 17 when the ball came out. Yeah. It was March of 2008. So it was right before I turned 18. And I had the abortion in December of 2007 was when that occurred. So just quick timeline. So it was very quickly like, we get rid of the baby, okay, now we're going to move on to this. So I never really got a chance to like grieve or, I had to just move on. And then I get a message one day on MySpace from this very pretty blonde lady. And it was around the time of March, April, I want to say. And she sends me a message and she's just like, hey, how are you? And she was, I want to say her age was like 23 on her page, but she was very pretty, very, young blonde. Like, why would I be concerned about her? We were always taught that it was creepy men to be afraid of. You didn't have to be afraid of women, like women don't do anything, right?
And even like stranger danger, where it's like it's going to be somebody that jumps out and attacks you, not somebody that's like,
exactly,
"Hey, who are you?"
100%. And she tells me how she has a modeling agency, and she's like, oh, I came across your profile, and she's like, you have the perfect look of what I'm looking for. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, I'm off to college, because I planned to go to college. And I'm like, well, I'm off to college. And she's like, okay, well, let's just keep in touch. And, so we started talking, and it was very basic conversation in the beginning. So my goal was to be a news anchor, and that's what I wanted to do. And so when I went to college, my degree was communications with a minor in poli-sci. And about 2 months into college, I find out that you actually don't need a degree to be a news anchor. You just need to get an internship with the right news station. So I decided to drop out. And so I didn't even make it a full semester. So I dropped out, and I go to my dad and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And he's like, nope, you need to go to college for business, apply for business stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, I'm not going to financially support any other option. And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, what about, FITM, the Fashion Institute? What if I went and like created my own business making wedding dresses? Like, I've always been really creative. I love to draw. That could be something I could pursue. FITM is very hard to get into. You have to do a whole portfolio. It's a whole process. You have to go through interviews. So I did it. I sat down, I created a portfolio, I put all the work in, I did all the interviews, and the final interview involves bringing a parent. And my dad came with me. And all while this is happening, this woman and I, her name is Roxy, we're messaging back and forth, right? Just everyday things, getting to know each other. She asks me about my relationship with my parents, and I don't even think twice about it at this point. She's just someone I'm talking to, and I enjoyed talking to her. Like, she became a good friend. When I had a bad day, I would tell her about my day. So we go to FITM, we do the FITM interview, and we're on the drive home, and my dad's like, this is a stupid dream. I'm not going to pay for it. He's like, you need to go into business. He's like, this school's a scam. It's not going to take you anywhere. And he's like, I'm not doing it. So I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to pay for a school that's $90,000 a year when I can't get any sort of funding because my parents make too much money? And then on top of it, I didn't know what was available, like, to do. And then my mom, she had an in with E! News, and my mom got me an interview with Dana Devin with E! Network, and it went great. They went through the whole internship process with me, and I had an internship opportunity with E! News to be a news anchor after it. And it's like a 6-month internship, but that required me moving to Burbank and needing 6 months of financials to cover rent and all that stuff while I'm going through it. again, my dad's like, I'm not paying for that. So I'm now like, what am I going to do? Like, I left college. I have 2 great opportunities in front of me, but I have no way to pay for them. And I'm telling her this, and she's like, well, she's like, you could cut bottle for me and you can make a lot of money. She's like, this is how you could do it. And at this point, I was like, yeah, I might as well. Like, why not? I was like, my dad doesn't want me to be a model, but if it affords me to do this, like, yeah, maybe I will go be independent, because she pushed that on me. She's like, you can be independent. You can make your own money. You don't need your dad. You don't need your family. Like, they're not there for you right now. They don't believe in you. And she saw my need that I had, and she grabbed onto my need and she ran with it. She gave me every piece of validation that I needed to hear in that moment. And that was it. She invited me to her studio. And I went. And when I got there, she was like, okay, I need you to get naked. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. I was like, why would I need to get naked for headshots? And I was like, why? And she's like, oh, well, directors, if you ever do any like movies where there's like a nude scene, she's like, they need to see everything and what you look like. And so in my mind, as a 18-year-old girl who knows nothing about Hollywood at all, I was like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. And so I did it. And when I left, I called my best friend at the time and I was like, hey, I just did this. It was really weird and like kind of uncomfortable. And my friend was like, that's not normal. She's like, I don't think anyone does that in Hollywood. And I was like, no, I trust her. I'm like, she's going to help me make enough money so I can take this internship. And I'm like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And my friend's like, no, this is a big deal. And I'm like, no, I trust her, like fully trust her. And so I get home, and within a couple hours, my mom pulls me aside and she's like, you did a naked photo shoot. And I was like, yeah. I was like, Mom, they were just headshots. Like, it's not a big deal. And my mom's like, yeah, she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, Mom, this lady told me I'm going to make much money modeling. And like tomorrow I have a fitness shoot already. Like, she already got me a fitness shoot tomorrow and they're paying me $1,000 for this fitness shoot. That was the only thing in my mind was, oh, she put my headshot out and I got a fitness shoot immediately within literally an hour of her putting my picture out there. And so my main thing was like, I need to get to that photo shoot so I can make money, so I can start saving, so I can take this internship. My mom's like, we need to tell your dad about this. And I'm like, don't tell dad. And she's like, we need to tell dad. And so she tells my dad. And my dad grabbed his gun and he was like, you are not my daughter. And my mom at that point went into a mode of like, I need to get my daughter out of this situation as quick as possible. I still to this day don't know what happened after I left. But that night they kicked me out of the house. They kept my phone. I had a suitcase with a handful of clothes, and that was it. It was about 9:00 at night when they kicked me out. Literally threw me on the street with nothing but a suitcase, no car, no money, nothing. And so my thing was, I need to get to this shoot tomorrow. Like, come hell or high water, I need to make that $1,000. And I was like, so I can at least get a phone and figure out somewhere to live. So I had a friend that lived nearby. I walked to their house. I used his phone to call the agent. I was able to set up a ride to get to the shoot in the morning. I show up to the address that was provided. And it's at this very 80s style white mansion. And I walk in, and it's just like white leather furniture everywhere, colorful pillows. And I was like, oh, this is a cool setup. Like, it was very different kind of vibe than like I've ever seen in a house before. And I meet the director and the photographer, and they were very friendly. They were like, oh, here's your media releases. We need your ID, da, da, da. We did all the formalities. And then they gave me the wardrobe. Like, they had it all picked out. And it was a little odd. I was like, huh. So they gave me, it was a purple tank top with like the lace bottom, like the one that Do and Hollister and Abercrombie used to sell, that like everyone layered on top of each other. They gave me one of those. And then they gave me these bright yellow sparkly leggings. And then a hot pink belt. And then they put barrettes in my hair, like little girl baby barrettes, like very colorful yellow ones. And then they gave me like beaded kid jewelry. It was very colorful. And I was like, oh, this is really weird. I'm like, this is interesting. And I'm just like, who are we shooting for? You know, and this man walks in, and they were like, oh, the other talent is here. And I'm like, talent for what? Like, what is he doing here? And they look at me and they're like, oh, you're going to have sex with him. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I was under the impression I'm just doing some photos in workout stuff today. Some like cute photos for workout. And he was like, yeah, you're in your workout stuff, but you're going to take it off and you're going to have sex with him. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And the guy who I was supposed to be having sex with, he was like, don't worry about it. I'll be super nice. I'll be really gentle. Like, I'll just tell you what to do the whole time. And I'm like, no, this isn't what, I don't want to do this. I'm like, I want to leave. I don't want to do this. And the director looked at me dead in the face, and he was like, if you leave, we are going to charge you $1,000 for canceling. And we're going to take you to court and sue you because you're at breach of contract because you've already signed this paper when you got here. And I'm like, I need to call my agent because this isn't right. I was like, maybe I'm at the wrong house. Like, I don't know. Maybe I got the address wrong. So I call her, and she's like, oh, don't worry about it. She's like, this happens all the time. She's like, you're going to make way more money this way. And I was like, I look like I'm like a 13-year-old girl right now. I'm like, this is really awkward. I'm like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't like how I look. This is uncomfortable. And she was like, look, she's like, what you're doing right now, she's like, you're actually like helping other little girls, because if you don't do this, then the men who like this are going to go and try to find little girls. And I was like, okay, so it's me or them. And I was like, if I leave, I'm going to get sued. I'm going to get fined. I have no phone to call anyone outside of the director letting me call my agent. I had no car to go anywhere. I didn't know where I was. I was in this random neighborhood. Like, if I was to run, where was I going to go? What was I going to do? So I went into...
And bear in mind, her parents have created this scenario. Basically, the chances that, you know, things that it just goes without saying, really, but it's just so sad. And the fact that, you know, that that there's even that industry for that, people have been made to like love this whole young child image of, you know, such a value. such a high value aspect of porn. So we'll just carry on. Thank you for Adam. Ready with your trigger finger, with your fiddling accusations. He's disgusting. You're just so immature, aren't you? And so damaged.
You do what you're told and you submit. And that's what I did.
Did you hear about the bit when she had to leave the property? She got kicked out of her house. How intently have you been listening to this whole testimony, Adam? That doesn't like to be known as Adam. For whatever reason. For your sensitivities. We don't really give you much sensitivities, really. At this stage, really. You know, I can try. I'll try and grace him with some sensitivities, AJ. AJ. What's the J bit stand for? All right, Adam. We'll be seeing you very soon in a court of law, won't we? This is going to be taken through the judicial means, the proper channels, and we're going to get you the help you very, very much need.
And then it's like, what would they do to you even? You don't know who has weapons on them. You're with these men that you don't know. You're a young girl. I mean, it'd be terrifying.
I had no idea what to do. My only thing at that point was do what I need to do to get out of this house as quickly as possible, and then I'll figure it out. And I was like, at least I'll walk away with some money. Because then I can like get a phone and figure something out. So I performed what they wanted me to do. And at the end of it, I just left the house and was like, I need to figure out a ride to get somewhere. And at the end of it, I asked the guy who I had to have sex with, I was like, hey, can I use your phone to call a friend to pick me up? And he was like, sure. So I called a friend. They picked me up. And I was like, I need you to take me to a store to get a phone. And so I had this $1,000 check. And no, I had to go. So I had this $1,000 check. I had to pay my agent 20%. And then the government taxes you on top of it. So 40% of that check was immediately gone for government taxes and my agent, which, yes, the government is legally taxing all of this. Because the thing about having the adult industry become legal like it has, what people don't realize is anyone, literally anyone can go online, create an LLC, deem that they're going to be filming adult content, and then now they have access to every single modeling agency where they can pick whatever girl they want, have them come over to their house, and legally traffic them. And there's nothing anyone can do. Nobody can do a thing. Because there's media releases. They dot every T, or they dot every I, cross every T. Like, these people are extremely calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who they want, and they know exactly how to get that person to where they want them to go. And something that terrifies me the most about these Epstein files that have come out, which I'm kind of put this together right now. Nothing I've seen has been tied to Epstein so far, but these people who used Epstein to get to these girls are no different than these men who have these fetishes of being with young women, young girls, where, you know, they're creating these LLCs and getting young girls to their house to have sex with them and film it. And essentially they're creating their own content, a lot of them. There were lots of homes I ended up going to where it was just a man and a camera, like a handheld camera that like your parents used to like film your birthdays. And you don't know where you're going or where you're going to show up to. But the problem is once you're in, like, you don't really know what to do at that point. And when I left, I did eventually get a phone, but then I was like, who am I going to call? My dad made sure to let everybody in the family know, extended family, everyone, like, you are not to talk to Rachel. If you do, I will not financially provide anything for you. I was completely outcasted. I had nobody to call or go to. And so I was like, I felt very stuck. I felt very trapped. I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. And that's where, you know, I was like, shit, I just need to make enough money at this point to get out. And she told me, she was like, look, she's like, you're never going to have to work with anyone you don't want to work with. You know, she's like, if you're ever uncomfortable, like, I'll make sure to handle it and take care of it. She's like, just do a couple of these and then we'll get you into some other stuff. And like, she got me into a position where I needed her financially. But then she never worked me enough to where I could get my head above water.
And at this point too, she had began a friendship with you. So she, in your mind, likely wasn't at this point a predator. She was still somebody that you trusted, somebody that you could confide in, somebody that was there for you. And so it probably didn't seem at that point that she was doing anything wrong to you. She was still helping you at this point keep your head up above water, when in fact she was actually trafficking you.
Yes. And in the moment, I didn't even realize what was happening. And so she was like, just do a couple more of these. She's like, it's fine. Like, she's like, don't think about it too much. She's like, you'll make a lot more money. Well, she would set me up working like 4 days in a row. So by the 5th day, I could barely walk. My body was destroyed. I was swollen in places you should never be swollen. And every time it was the same thing. It was dress me up as little as possible, as young as possible. And I never knew what I was going to walk into. And it got to a point where I was like, I need to get out of this. Like, I can't keep doing this. But I also was like, I don't know who to call or who to reach out to. And I didn't want to tell anybody either. Like, I kind of at that point where, like, you know what, I'm just going to like find the best in this. I'm going to try to find the positive side of this. And I kept trying to stay positive throughout it. And this went on for a total of 8 months. And again, I never made enough money to go. And I would be so physically drained, physically beat up from these men I had to be with. And I would have to find rooms for rent because all I could afford was like $500 a month at this point. And so she would send me Craigslist ads And she's like, oh, here, I found one for you. So like she had her hand in everything I did. She had her hand in people she introduced me to. She's like, oh, you should hang out with them this weekend. You'll have fun with them. And then I would hang out with them. I would end up getting drugged. I got very heavily into drinking because it was the only way to really like get through a lot of this. Is I realized like, you know, I have this level of drunk where like I could just completely disconnect from my body. And it was like a whole other person. And I think one of the worst parts of this is these people who do this, they make you record pre-videos. And in these pre-videos, they give you like a script of what to say. And they want you to act super bubbly and excited and that you're like begging for this man to be with you. And I think that was harder than the actual act. Because when it came to the act, I could like tune out, disconnect from myself.
It's traumatic thinking of this, and I can't even imagine like how demoralizing that would be to have to do that, especially when you're already like feeling so broken, feeling so betrayed. You had just gone through even like the abortion not too long before that, had no time to grieve, and it's just been like one thing after another, and you have no voice. Like there's nobody that's like stepping up to help you out of these situations. You're swimming through these drowning situations over and over and over again, and just being beat down more and more and more.
And you just want to get out, and you don't feel like you can. And I think a big part of it is I was taught growing up, like you submit, you know, that's what you do. And so for me, I went into, I'm going to submit to survive. And I'm just going to keep going until I have enough money to buy a car and drive wherever the hell I need to drive. And I ended up, she called me one time, and this was towards like a few months into it. And she's like, hey, there's this really cool party at the Playboy Mansion. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, this is how you're going to meet Hollywood directors. She's like, this is where the director is going to be. She's like, this is how you're going to get out and like you can become a news anchor by, you know, one of the directors might be there. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, yes. Like she's finally doing this for me. And she kept doing that. She would like hold these carrots, right? And she'd be like, oh, you're almost there. You're almost there. Like it's here. And we had to meet at an abandoned parking lot. All of us girls who went, it was like 20 of us, I want to say it was. And we all met at this abandoned parking lot, and they loaded us up into a bus. And we were bussed up to the Playboy Mansion, which I don't think many people realize. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like it's in a popular city, but it's also secluded. So we get there, we get bussed in, we walk into the backyard, and I was like, we're walking in, there's like the pool in the front, and then off to the left, there's like a bunch of privacy cabanas. So like when they're closed, you can't see anything that's going on inside. And then there was like the dance floor area, but there was no DJ. They had just like basic music. And then there was all men, no other women except us, which I immediately was like, something's not right. And we walked up, and this guy came up to us, and they were like, hey, who wants to get naked, like fully nude, and get body painted? And a couple of the girls were like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And I was like, is it mandatory? Like, do we have to? And he was like, well, we don't have to, but like we encourage it. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And within 10 minutes of being there, this gentleman comes up to me. He's probably 5'9", brown hair, overweight. And he's like, hey, I just got you for a tent. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I just paid them money, and now you give me oral. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this was supposed to be like a networking party, which at this point, I don't know why I trusted her or believed her. Like, I think I don't think I wanted to admit what I knew. And I think it just got to a point where I was like, I wanted her to not be who I thought. And I like kept trusting her because I was like, no, like I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. I just need to trust her. Like this is how she does it. This is her process. And then on top of it, there was this other side to me that was like, it's you or these little girls. And I was like, I'd rather it be me. I'm like, if I have to do this and it keeps a few girls safe, like, cool, I'll take it. And so that's where my head was this whole time, was like, I'm almost there. Like she's going to do it for me. It's going to happen. And then on the other side, it was like, okay, but I'm doing something good because I'm like protecting these little girls. So I'm at this party and I'm just like, okay. I was like, I guess I have to perform this on this really disgusting overweight man that I want nothing to do with. And after that, I was like, okay, I need to get a game plan together because I don't want to do that the rest of this night. And one of the girls I knew, I was like, hey, this just happened. And she was like, oh, I don't want to do that. She's like, I don't want to give anyone anything. And I was like, yeah, I don't either. So her and I essentially buddied up. And I was like, well, why don't we just convince them like to watch us make out? And maybe that will be enough to like make them not want us to do anything to them. And there was this room at the mansion that was like off to the side. So like when you were looking like at the pool where like the grotto is off to the side, on the other side, there was like the house. And one of the gentlemen knew about a room that had bean bags in it. And he took us in there, me and this girl, and he took like two of his buddies and they all took care of themselves while they watched her and I together. Because at the end of the day, her and I were like, if we have to be with anyone, I'd rather it be someone I feel at least safe with. And that party also had there was about 10 to 12 NFL players from a very popular team. And I'm going to leave their team name out of it. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to like go talk to people. And maybe if I'm like constantly talking to people, like I can get out of this. Because we couldn't leave. Like they bust us in. We didn't have anything. Like we had our phone, but like you can't call anyone to come. Excuse me. You can't call, like you're at the Playboy Mansion. Like I didn't know, no one knows the address, like unless you've been there. It's not. And I think people forget because people think like the internet now, the internet in 2009 was not the internet that we have today. Like we still had Ask Jeeves that we searched things on. Like the information that was available back then is not the same as today. And so I start talking to one of the football players and he was like, so what's going on here? And I was like, well, this is what I've learned so far. And he's like, oh, he goes, I thought I was like just coming to a fun mansion party. He's like, I didn't realize this was something else. And he's like, do you want to get out of here? And he's like, because I want to get out of here. And I was like, 100% I want to get out of here. At this point, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen when I leave with you. But in my own head, I was like, you know what? At least you're attractive and you're not a gross old man. So I'm like, if I have to be with someone, I'll take it. And so I was like, we'll see what happens. So he brought me to his buddy's house. He was able to leave with me. As far as I know, he had to pay for it. he had to give them money to take me. And when we got to his buddy's house, he actually ended up being a total gentleman. And he was like, you do not have to sleep with me. He's like, if you want to sleep in a separate room, you can. And he was the reason I was able to get out of there that night. There are girls that went there that night that I never saw again. I don't know what happened to them after the party. It was people I would see and then never saw. So I don't know how that party ended or what happened after that party. And then while I was doing all this, so a lot of these videos that I was having taken of myself, majority of them were never like, they were never like on Pornhub or any of that stuff. I don't know where they went or who they were for or what happened to them. I've never been able to find them. There's a few videos that were more traumatic than others that I have searched for. As far as I know, they don't exist. And she would fly me to other states for specific videos. I went to Arizona. I went to Ohio. I went to Miami. And the first time I actually felt semi-safe was I was on my flight to Miami. And one of the flight attendants, she was like coming around asking people for drinks and stuff or food and whatnot. And I was like, no, I don't have any money on me. Like, I can't get anything. And she kind of, I don't know if it was like my persona or what, but this flight attendant had like a red flag moment. And she just kind of like stayed next to me most of the flight, asked me questions. She's kind of like brought me snacks. She's like, what are you doing in Miami? Like, where are you going? Where are you staying? And I think she had some sort of idea that I didn't want to be on that flight, but she couldn't like prove it. But at the end of the flight, you know, she was like, hey, you know, like, be safe. And when I was in Miami, I did one video and I met the guy that I was with. He decided that he really liked me. And he's like, I want you to stay in Miami. And so he ended up calling my agent and he was like, I want to give you and her, like, I want to pay her, you know, a salary for her to just stay here with me. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I want to go back to California. And he respected my decision. My agent tried to talk me out of it. She was like, this is a great opportunity. You're going to make so much money. And I'm like, I don't want to stay here. And there was a part of me that I was like, well, if I do stay here, I could start over and like run off or, you know, whatever the case may be. But then I was like, no, like, I don't know anything about Miami. Like, I need to just go back. So I get back to California and she's like, you know what? We need to get you a sugar daddy. And I'm like, what is a sugar daddy? And she's like, it's just someone who's going to take care of you financially. And she's like, you know, you're not making as much money as we hoped. And she was like, why don't we just find a guy who can like pay for what you need? And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, well, I'm going to set you up on a date. I'm like, okay. So I go on a date. I show up. And this guy is a surgeon of some sort. And he was probably in his mid 40s. And he was like, I'm looking for someone to breed. And he was like, you would essentially marry me, be my wife. and you will have 4 kids. He's like, you'll have 1 kid, like back to back to back. And he's like, I will give you $200,000 a year to be my wife and have my babies. And he's like, after you have the babies, he's like, we'll get your boobs done and we'll get you a tummy tuck and I'll make sure you're always looking good. So when you have to show up to anything, like you look presentable. And that's what he wanted. And he, come to find out, my agent would get like a finder's fee if I like decided to go along with it. But this guy in particular, he was like, I don't want to force it. He's like, I want someone who sees this as a business deal and like is into it. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not into this. I'm like, I don't want to be bred for that. And I got an email from a guy who was someone who apparently saw my videos consistently. I don't know where, but he was a married man with kids. And I'm like, anybody at this point who ever came up to me and was like, oh, I've seen your video. I'm like, you're a pedophile. Like anybody who has seen me at this point, I'm like, you really need to question your morals because the stuff I did was very, very, very wrong. And so he emailed me and I was like, you know what? Whatever at this point. So I emailed him back. We started having just very normal conversation, oddly enough. And he developed a level of attachment to me. And he asked me like, hey, how did you get into this line of work? I was like, well, I don't want to be doing this. I'm like, I'm only here until I can make enough money to buy a car so I can get out. And after talking for a little bit, he was like, I'm going to send you a check for $10,000 to buy a car. He's like, he's like, I see you like my daughter now, which made it even worse. I was like, don't want to know what's happening at this man's house. But I was like, whatever. I gave him my home address. I was like, honestly, at this point, if someone showed up and murdered me, they'd be doing me a favor. And I got to a point during all this where I completely emotionally gave up. I was like, I'm just going to get through this. And I didn't see an end in sight at this point. I was like, I'm never going to get out of this. Like, she's going to keep me in this forever. I'm like, there's no way out. There's no escape. And I was on Craigslist because back in the day, this is where you looked for jobs. I was on like normal jobs. I was on Craigslist every day trying to find anything. But when I would like have a conversation over the phone, they're like, so what do you currently do for work? And I'm like, I don't really have a resume. And I'm like, how do you explain this to somebody in an interview, your situation? And they're like, do you have a reliable car? And I'm like, no, I don't have a car. And people don't realize how hard it is to get hired when you don't have a car. And this is back before Uber or anything. Like, the only option was a taxi or a friend who had a car. You can't rent a car in the state of California until you're 25. Like, I couldn't rent a car. It was taxis or it was rides from whoever I could bum a ride from. And I was currently where I was at. I was about an hour and a half drive to my parents' house. So I wasn't far, but I was too far at the same time. And this whole timeline was about 8 months long. And the day I received that check, I called a buddy and I was like, hey, can you drop me off at a dealership? Drop me off. I handed the dealership a check. I was like, I need a car. And I went to probably the shadiest dealership in LA that you could possibly go to because it was just the first one we found. And I got in that car and I called my mom. And I don't know if it's because like so much time had lapsed. My mom was just like, I'm going to do everything in my power to have my daughter home. But she was like, come meet me. And so her and I met up and we reconnected. She never asked what happened. I think at this point she was like, I don't want to know. I just want you home. And my dad did not want me home. He was like, she will not be in this house. And that's where my mom was like, yeah, no, you can F right off. She's going to be in this house. And she was like, you're going to deal with it. And so when I got back home, I completely blocked this lady on everything. As far as she knows, like, I fell off the face of the earth. Like, I completely went ghost on her because I didn't know what else to do. And I was at home and I got a phone call from a random man. And this was like 2-3 days after. And he's like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm calling you because there's currently a thread online, and it wasn't Reddit, but it was like a Reddit thread. Reddit is the best example I could give of what this is. It was essentially like an off-brand Reddit site. And he was like, there is currently a bunch of men who are bidding on raping and murdering you, and your home address is posted and your phone number is on there. That's how I got your phone number. And he goes, I just wanted to let you know. He's like, I just stumbled on this randomly. I don't know how I stumbled on it. And he's like, but I need to give you a heads up because I don't think you're safe. So we took this to the police station. We printed out the thread, took it to the police station, filed a report, talked about everything I had just gone through with one of the police officers, and they filed it in a box and never heard of it again. So we had to go to the thread itself and we had to report it every single day, multiple times a day until it got taken down. And at this point, I was like, I can't stay here because I'm putting my little sister in danger. And so I ended up moving down to San Diego because I had an aunt who lives down here, and she was like, you can come stay with me. And so I moved down here, moved down to San Diego, and that's kind of what brought me down. And I was mentally in a very, very rough place. But all I wanted was to just feel any sort of love from anyone. Like, I was a very easy target coming out of this. If you were just semi-nice to me, I would cling on to you. Because at the end of the day, I was like, well, they're not forcing me to have sex with them, so they're not a bad guy. The ways I justified people's actions for the next 10, 12 years of my life were, you know what? They're not forcing me to have sex with them, so I'm okay. I'm all right. And I dealt with some very rough things in relationships after that because of that, and had some rough relationships when I got out. But now, fast forward all this time, I'm now 35. It's been 17 something years. And one of the reasons, like, I have people who are like, why are you talking about this now? And one of the reasons is I have taken all of the blame, all of the accountability onto myself, because I was like, look, I went to that shoot and, I didn't fight back. I didn't punch anyone. I didn't run away. And like, I could have done more to get out, like, looking back. But in the moment, I just would freeze and I didn't know what to do. And, they just constantly were like, we're going to sue you if you don't do this. We're going to fine you if you don't do this. And I didn't know I had my rights. I didn't know the laws. I didn't know any of that. Like, I started at 18, finished at 19. Like, I didn't know, like, you are not an adult at 18 and 19. And anybody who says you are lying to yourself, because they are not. Like, You are still a little girl when you're 18, 19. And you don't know the world and you don't know how the world works. And I think a lot of people put pressure on, the younger generation to like hop out of high school and jump into success and all these things, when really like you're still figuring out yourself. You're still figuring out life. You're still figuring out how things work. And for me, I knew how to submit. That's all I knew how to do. That was what I was ingrained into my mind being brought up in my house. It was, you do what you're told, you submit. And so that's like when I was in a bad position, that's what I did, because I was like that. I don't know what else to do. I was never taught to fight. I was never taught to say no. I was never taught to fight back. I was never taught that I had a voice. I was never taught that like my body is special and mine. I never had self-worth. I never had self-respect. I never had any of that. I was the perfect target for a groomer. I wanted acceptance. I wanted love. I wanted to be successful. I wanted independence. And to kind of just wrap this up for today is, with all of this, these groomers and these traffickers, they are very calculated and they're very manipulative, and they will follow you for years before they message you. And now with social media going the way it is, I have really found a need to start talking about this, because I see how vulnerable our kids are and our girls and our teens, how they're all on these public accounts. The little girls have public accounts and the mom's like, oh, I run it. But these people know that the kid is eventually going to take over their account. And now this groomer, this trafficker has 5-10 years of information. And to tie back to the Epstein files, Epstein was the one who was bringing these men, these little girls, because these men have a want for little girls. Just because Epstein is gone and these files are out does not mean that that want is gone. It just means they need to find a new way to get it. How do you guys think, how do you think they're going to find a new way to get it? It's social media is the easiest way to get it. And a lot of the parents who are publicly posting their kids, tagging the location, doing collaborations with resorts, hotels, airlines, it takes one groomer, one trafficker to watch a mom be like, oh, okay, she always flies on this airline. She always goes to this hotel chain because she has a collab deal with them. They can very easily find out almost everything about you based on the collaborations you're doing, the locations you're tagging, and you're putting your kid out there for everyone to see and develop an attachment to. Like, I had a man who developed a full-blown attachment with me through emails. And people will sit and tell me that they don't need to be worried about posting their child. I'm like, you don't know what I know. You don't know what I've been through. You don't understand how dark it is out there. And how these people who once they find someone they want, they will take the time. They will do the pre-work. They will do everything they need to do to get to the person that they want. And they are not normal thinking people. These are people who look at a 4 or 5-year-old girl and get aroused. And you're telling me that you're just going to throw your little girl out there for views and clicks, when the people who are watching her, she is being sexualized. If your child is online, there is somebody watching who is sexualizing your child in some way. And it's not a if or when, it's a they are. And it's a pill every parent needs to swallow at this point, because it's only going to get worse.
Amen. And I could not agree more. And I'm excited to have you back on again to dive more into this, because there's so much that we can go into regarding the momfluencers, the young teenagers that are getting handed accounts online, that are starting social media accounts, that are finding themselves in the midst of groomers and not knowing that they're grooming them, just like how you didn't. You know, there's just so much misconception around abuse and trauma that we're not told. And the fact is, online makes it so much easier for these people. They don't have to leave their home and abduct a child anymore. They don't have to physically go and try to groom somebody or get in somehow with the child or the teenager or the young woman. They can just literally go on social media, create an account, and start communicating them, just like how your groomer did, you know? So I'm really,
and the other thing I'm seeing now, the other thing I'm seeing now too, I want to bring up is there are a lot of companies who are now claiming to be agents for influencers. So I think that's going to be the new thing we start seeing is people who do have accounts they're trying to grow. I think they're going to start getting messages from these people who are going to be like, oh, I can help your page. I can get you better collabs. I can make you more money. And I think that's going to be a new avenue that people start using to get to these teens.
It's basically a duplication of what was done to you, except instead of it being offline, hey, sign this contract, we're going to hire you for this job, they can do the same exact thing on social media. Sign here, sign your rights away to this agency, and it's basically going to be the same exact thing that you went through.
Yeah, and it's going to keep going until more of us women who've gone through this start talking. And it's not easy to talk about because, again, like at the end of the day, I did submit and I feel a lot of shame and guilt around that. And I held on to that for a very, very long time until about 2022 when I started seeing a therapist who asked me about like how I got into it and what led up to it. And she was one of the first people who were like, you were trafficked into this. And I'm like, no, I went and did it. She's like, would you have done this if you didn't meet that woman? She's like, would you have ever been in this? And I'm like, no, God, no. I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. Like the only thing I knew before getting into this was like Skinemax, soft course stuff. Like I didn't even know people did this or there were websites for this. Like I was so naive to that world entirely. And it was nothing I ever looked up. I was never into it. Like I was not somebody who was like sexual with myself. You know, I didn't have that. Like sex was never a pleasure thing for me because of everything I had gone through. So I didn't have that desire to like ever need to find porn or anything. And so I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know this was a thing until I walked into it and I was like, oh, what am I doing? And I think, you know, anyone takes anything from this, it's that just because a woman does submit doesn't mean they were, you know, they're not a victim of it. Like I think there's a lot of women who submit to survive. And I guarantee 90% of those women have never shared their story because they know they eventually let it happen. And there is a lot of shame and there is a lot of guilt around that. And you're like, well, you know, I eventually did it, right? And having that, you're like, okay, like, what do I do now? Like, I didn't punch him in the face. Like, you know, and it's just something so many women, I think, hold onto and don't ever talk about and don't ever bring up. And I will say, since sharing my story on Instagram, you know, there are a lot of women who have reached out to me who have told me their story for the first time, who were like, I feel like I can tell you and you're not going to judge me. And because a lot of women are like, I didn't fight, so I don't feel like I have a voice. Yeah. And I really hope more women start understanding that just because you didn't throw a punch or scream or kick doesn't mean your story isn't valid. And I really hope women start coming forward more and, you know, talking about the fact that a lot of women are pressured into situations that they don't want to be in. And then they're held with all this shame and guilt because, again, they're like, I did it, so I can't say anything.
And you're doing such an incredible job bringing awareness to that. And I'd like to share your Instagram page. Would you be able to tell people where they can find you? And I'll share it on the screen. That way people can come follow your journey.
Yeah, so it's at that dang Rachel. And you know, I'm kind of just posting as I go, telling my story, but then I'm also trying to do a lot of education about social media, the grooming, how to protect our kids from ending up in the same situation I did. And I'm also showcasing a lot of analytics that I'm finding on social media around how, you know, in the rare occasion I did post one of my children, the demographic it was getting pushed to through the algorithm is mostly men versus a post with just me and, you know, my guy in it, which was getting pushed to mostly women. And I found that really interesting. And, you know, at the end of the day, like if I do have a high views from men on a post with my children, it doesn't mean all those men are bad. But knowing what I know, I do know there is a percentage of men on there that I don't want looking at my kids. And that's a reality we all have to start acknowledging and facing. And it's not a fun one, but our children aren't safe to be publicly put out there anymore. Like they're just, I mean, they never were, but even more so now.
And I love seeing the following that you're getting, and that with these posts, you're getting such high engagement. It's like, what an amazing time that we live in, that people are willing to listen to this now, when before it was always written off as more conspiratorial, or I just don't want to look at it, or because the news isn't covering it, it's not real for me, you know. And we forget that these crimes exist not in just the ghettos of big cities, not in third world countries. This is happening on social media. This is happening in our communities. This is happening at places like the Playboy Mansion. You know, we have a completely twisted perspective on what trafficking and organized crime against humans and children could look like when it comes to these different trafficking situations. And so thank you, Rachel, for all the work that you're doing. You know, it's not easy making that decision to put your face out there. And I'm sure to some extent it's come with a cost, and hopefully the good has outweighed the negative, whatever the negative may be, you know. And I'm just really grateful for it, because there is such a need for these conversations that you're having. And like I said, you're the first person that I've really come across that's been very loud about this consistently. And I couldn't think of a more important topic to affect generations to come. And I'm so grateful that it's you championing it. I couldn't think of a better role model for young girls to see than you.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm trying. I'm figuring it out one day at a time.
Well, I look forward to doing a part 2 with you. And for people listening, please leave comments for Rachel down in the comment box. Reach out to her on social media if you guys have questions and want to connect with her as well. And your DMs are open. You're communicating with people that way if they want to reach out, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I have a lot of women who have started telling me their stories and, you know, different varieties of how they were trafficked. And there is there's so many different avenues of trafficking and how someone can get trafficked. And I think so many people have this idea of like the movie Taken, for example. Yes. And they think it's this like crazy hostage situation, but you don't realize the hostage situation is they take over you mentally. You are mentally their hostage, not physically. You can run anytime, but mentally, it's almost hard to explain how mentally trapped you are.
That's a really great analogy. and we'll dig more into some of these nuances. And I'm excited to pick your brain too about relationships, managing that after going through something like you did, parenting that you've learned, advice for
A lot
other
of lessons learned there.
and even just more about online, how we can all be safer. You know, this isn't just parents with kids that are targeted. This can be anybody, you know, whether you have kids or not. Just being on social media, it's a breeding ground for predators to lurk. So I'm excited to have you back on, and I'll have your links in the show notes. Is there anything that you wanted to close with, or anything you wanted to say to survivors listening?
I think if I could say anything, it's that now there's no better time to be a survivor than right now. Like 10 years ago, I couldn't have told my story. I don't think it would have had the same reaction as it is right now. And so if I can encourage anyone, I would encourage everyone to start talking, because the more we talk and the more we educate, you know, the more we can hopefully get towards some kind of solution or help, or at least educate people enough to where we stop giving these predators people to go after.
Thank you for that. And thank all of you on the other side of the screen for listening and supporting. I'm going to have all Rachel's information in the show notes. Go follow her on Instagram, DM her, go support her, share her content, engage, reach out, and just continue the work that all of you are doing on the other end to help support this movement. We couldn't do this without you. So with that, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Bless you all, and we will see you next time.